And this is what happens when you wear a green skirt. Hi, Christina Brown here with the Brown team. What are closing costs that a seller is typically responsible for? This is something I get asked a lot, and a lot of people have no idea. Sellers do have closing costs. What are they? Let's talk about them for a second. Sometimes when a deal is negotiated, there are some additional things that buyers may ask for, especially when it is a buyer's market. A buyer may want to ask, or in many cases need to ask, for a seller to pay for their closing costs or a portion of them. And a lot of times a buyer will also ask the seller to purchase them a home warranty. However, in this market, those are two things that we are seeing buyers scratch off their list, and buyers are typically paying those things on their own, on their end, just in order to be competitive so they can get their offers accepted. So those are a couple of things I'll leave off this list because you're probably not going to have to pay them right now as a seller, okay? So we're gonna throw away buyer's closing costs and buying that home warranty for the buyer, and let's talk about the things we know that for sure will come up. The number one expense, which is usually the largest expense on your side of closing costs, are what liens do you owe, right? What do you have to pay off when you sell this house? All liens and judgments must be satisfied when the property is sold. So that chunk of money owed immediately comes out of your proceeds at closing. So that's number one, right? So if you owe $200,000 on your property, you sell it for $300,000, let's say, well, 200 of it immediately will go to the mortgage company at closing. So that's the number one expense, any payoffs. But that's not just for your mortgage, it's liens, judgments. Have you been sued? Do you owe somebody money? Does somebody have another lien on your property? Any and all of those are what must be satisfied. So you have to take that off of your proceeds and count that as a seller closing cost expense that you are responsible to pay. The next biggest thing is Uncle Sam. They want their taxes. You are responsible from January 1st through whatever date it closes, and for that portion of taxes for the year. So they are prorated based on, usually it's the previous year's tax rate, and we take that and we prorate it, or the title company, I should say, will prorate that, and that's how much they will charge you in your closing costs for your taxes. So that is calculated super close, as exact as can possibly be, and then that chunk of money is given over to the buyer so that the buyer can put that with whatever funds they are putting aside for the rest of the year, and they'll pay the full bill. But you are responsible, that is part of your closing costs for the amount of time that you have owned the property. The next thing is title insurance. So it is typically, this is how our contracts are written here, that the seller is responsible and will pay for the title insurance policy and for the title search and everything related with that title, because in order to sell it, if you want your property to be sellable, have multiple offers, and get full market value, you need to be giving over full, clean, clear title to that buyer. The only way to ensure that that is happening is by having title insurance. So that is a cost that the seller pays. Those are seller closing costs. It's hard to give an exact number on this because it's based on the sales price. The title insurance for a $100,000 home is going to be very different than the title insurance for $1 million home. So it varies greatly, but I'm going to say for our standard price range we're seeing here in eastern Jackson County, we're right here in the area where we are, the average sales price is, let's say it's kicking up close to $300,000. Those title fees are probably going to run you just a smidge over $1,000. Okay, so that's for the two title fees that they charge you at closing for the clean, clear title. The next thing that is the seller's responsibility is, of course, commissions. That is what's typical here, that the seller pays for all commissions that get split 50-50 with both agents. That is so you will get the most eyeballs, the most interest, the most showing, therefore make the most money. So that's how it's set up. So that is a seller closing cost. Another thing that is the seller's closing cost is going back to that payoff of any liens Your mortgage is a big one. They typically want those payoffs overnighted, and they charge a little overnight fee. It's not that much. It's usually 20 to 30 bucks for them to overnight pay off. So they're going to charge that fee to you at closing and take that out of your proceeds as well. Thankfully, that's a little one. And then the last one that I have is in the state of Missouri. If you are in Missouri, Missouri now requires a closing protection fee. This has to be charged for each title company involved in the transaction. And here, a lot of times, the buyers and sellers use their own separate title companies. And the Missouri state law requirement is they have to charge $25 per title company involved. So this $25 per title company is what is called a closing protection fee. That is supposed to protect you in case the title company commits frauds with the funds. So that is basically giving you assurance that, hey, by paying this $25 policy for your title company, that you are protected and those funds are basically insured that they will go to where they're supposed to go. I don't think it's a necessary fee if you use a reputable title company that you have a great relationship with. However, it is a state law requirement. So those are your closing costs if you're selling. Anything can be negotiated into the contract, but in this market, typically those closing costs, that's really all you're going to see. And a buyer will have their own closing costs on top of all of these. And you really, in this current market, should probably not really expect to pay those. So hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day, and we'd love to sell your house.